North Dakota State Extension economist Frayne Olson is our marketing analyst this week. Frayne joined us Monday to analyze U.S. wheat markets, international production, and the latest USDA crop reports.
Well, in general, most of the reports came out with subtle changes. It was in general positive for corn. We had a slight increase in harvested acreage, but a decrease in yields, as well as the quarterly stocks report showed that we had a little tighter supplies than we had expected. For soybeans, relatively neutral. Small changes in the balance sheet. The quarterly grain stocks report was about where we had expected. And in general, a negative tone for wheat. We had a slight increase in the ending stocks for wheat. We had a slight increase in the world ending stocks for wheat. But then there was a few surprises in the winter wheat plantings report as well.
The winter wheat that's in the ground right now, Frayne, and as you mentioned, the winter wheat seedings number came out. It's just less than 42 million acres, but that winter wheat that's in the ground, going into January, there were some really, really rough temperatures and rough weather. Do you have a sense of maybe if that impacted that winter wheat at all?
Well, it's a little bit early to tell right now, and the big debate is we have a pretty significant portion of the winter wheat belt that has snow cover, and of course the snow cover helps provide some insulation for the growing point, and hopefully the areas that do have good snow cover won't have major winter kill issues. But there are also parts of the winter wheat belt that have no snow, and of course those lower temperatures really can have an impact on the growth point and potential freeze damage as we move forward. The challenge we have is we really won't know what the implications are until later on this spring, once the winter wheat starts to break dormancy and we start moving forward and start to take some stand counts.
Would those be both hard red and soft red, Frayne?
That would be both for hard red and soft red as well, yes.
Okay, so as I mentioned, the seeding numbers came out for winter wheat, less than 42 million acres. Overall impressions?
Yeah, that was a little bit of a surprise. I know there were some private analysts, and I know myself included, was expecting a slight increase in the winter wheat seedings report. Again, primarily because of the price relationships that we saw between winter wheat and soybeans and corn during the time that you have to make a decision on winter wheat seedings. I guess the surprise was we had a pretty significant cutback in soft red winter wheat plantings, about almost 1.6 million acres. Now, all winter wheat was down about 1.2 million acres, so we had a slight increase in the winter wheat. We had a slight increase in the white wheat area, but the big cutback was in soft red winter. And if you look at where soft red winter wheat is typically grown, that's kind of in the heart of the corn soybean belt. And so that really raises some questions as we move forward, not only longer term for the price outlook for wheat, because we do have lower acreage, but then what happens to the planting intentions as we move forward for corn and soybeans as well. What are those 1.2 million acres going to be planted to? And given the price relationships we see right now, we do need to see a cutback in the corn acreage, or we're going to see some significantly lower corn prices. We can see some increase in the soybean plantings, but again, there's limits to how far the price can drop before that takes the bite out of the bottom line for farmers as well. So this will really start, as we're moving forward, start some interesting discussions about what might come this spring.
Is it just this spring, Frayne, or is that a long-term impact as well?
Well, there is a combination of both. Again, for the wheat market specifically, it'll have a little bit longer-term implications because obviously if we have lower seedings, that means that it puts more pressure on yield and yield potential and coming back into your potential frost damage. Right now, most of the growing region for the winter wheat belt has good soil moisture. But again, that can change fairly rapidly if we start getting into some warm, dry spring. On the corn and bean side, that's really a seasonal adjustment. We will have to also wait to see what happens out of South America for both the corn and soybean yields. That will have an impact then on how many acres we need to produce here in the United States and what kind of prices we might see next fall.
For the price of wheat, there has been little to no momentum. What do you foresee for the rest of January?
Well, that's a bit of a trick. There's a significant downtrend remaining in the wheat markets. There is some resistance levels that start to show up in that $6 per bushel range on the futures price. From a technical standpoint, I think a lot of the traders are kind of looking at that as a potential floor or base that we're putting in. I think some of the technical analysts are also looking at the lows we put in just previous to the report on the corn side. And of course, we always have that linkage between corn and soybean prices, or corn and wheat prices, excuse me. So as we move forward, I do think we'll start to see some leveling off and the potential for increases as we move into spring.